So in the given argument, the two boldface selections play which of the following roles? We need to paraphrase these roles as much as we can and do our best to figure out and continually reevaluate what they're doing in the sentence. So although the earliest surviving war tomahawks in Greenland date from the 12th century of the Common Era, the fact that some of those tomahawks contain one stone blade and others have a two-headed blade indicate that the native Greenlanders adopted the use of the war tomahawk at least 200 years before those particular tomahawks were made. Okay, so the fact that this has the fact that in it, right here, tells us that the first one is some kind of fact. Isn't that neat? Okay, so we know the first one is some kind of fact, and it's being used to support the idea that the war tomahawk was used at least 200 years earlier. So now we know something about that first one. Okay, after all, the war tomahawk was introduced to Greenland by Viking sailors who used battle axes, and presumably native Greenlanders not only adopted the concept of a sideways blade attached to a stick used in battle, but also the specific shape of the weapon they encountered. So that's not underlined, we're just sort of keeping track. We're drawing a connection between these tomahawks, these war tomahawks in Greenland, and the people that they supposedly got it from, namely the Viking sailors. Okay, second boldface statement, and although Viking war axes at first sometimes contained one blade and sometimes two blades, by the 12th century, Viking war axes were consistently made with a two-headed blade and had been for 2 centuries already. So this ties us back to the notion of the war tomahawks in Greenland being older than 12th century CE, because if they got them from the Vikings and the Vikings had had them for 2 centuries already, they probably had that before too. So the second one is an additional fact, and in fact it's an even stronger one, saying that since we know that Vikings had it earlier, we can conclude that Greenland perhaps had it earlier as well. So both things are facts to support this notion that the war tomahawk is older than the 12th century. Okay, so we want something like that. A, both selections provide evidence in support of an initial conclusion that the argument ultimately rejects. Nothing gets rejected in the conclusion. Or in the passage. B, the first provides evidence in support of the position that the argument is trying to prove. It does. The second is that position. No, it's not. C, the first is evidence brought in order to challenge the position that the argument is trying to prove. Nope, it's support. D, the first is evidence brought in order to challenge the position that the argument is trying to prove. Nope. E, both selections provide evidence in support of the position that the argument is trying to prove. Yes, both of them support, not challenge, the main idea. Choice E.